because this might be the inner chronicle of what we are, and we have to articulate ourselves, otherwise we would be cows in a field.
Welcome to Cows in the Field. This is a show in which we discuss philosophical themes in popular films. My name is Justin.
I'm Laura.
And today we are continuing our spooky season run by shadowing a team of firefighters as they respond to a distress call at a Barcelona apartment building. That means it's time for Wreck.
Bueno, ahora nos lo vamos a encontrar, ¿no?
Bueno, entramos.
La vieja vive en el primero derecho. ¿Qué ha pasado?
Mari Carmen, que es la mujer que ha llamado a los bomberos de la policía, dice...
Señora, estése quieta. Señora.
Lo tienes.
Lo tengo.
Es que están muy mal.
And joining us today, we have Pete Turner. Pete is a film and media lecturer at Oxford Brookes University. He's an expert on found footage films and the author of Found Footage Horror Films, A Cognitive Approach. Pete, welcome to Cows in the Field.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. It's very exciting to be here.
We're really excited to have you. I want to know, first off, I know you've been working on found footage films for a while. What drew you to work on that particular genre or subgenre of horror in particular?
So, it came out of my PhD, which I started in 2011, which I did part-time and finished it a lot later. And then that became the book. It's a bit of I would say, this is probably a weird entry point, but and it's going to sound strange to people, and I worry about that, but never mind. I was quite obsessed with 9/11,
Okay.
and for the first kind of 10 years after that happened, I really thought about it all the time, to a scary degree, particularly for someone who doesn't live in America, doesn't live in New York, didn't have anyone affected by it in my life. But I was really taken by it, and I was really taken by the fact that so much of the footage that I saw was captured by average people on the streets.
Yeah.
And I'd always loved, just to go back to found footage, I'd always loved Blair Witch Project. But then around 2007, 2008, Wreck came out and Cloverfield came out, and there was a real boom, and Paranormal Activity and all these sorts of films. And Cloverfield just made that parallel sort of with 9/11 so kind of concrete that, that idea of we're in New York, this crazy thing is happening, I've got a camera, I'm going to capture it. So that was the initial thing I wanted to explore. I just wanted to figure out how these films were sort of playing on the power of amateur captured disaster.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, when I look at some of the footage from 9/11. Sorry, I just ate some of my beard there for a second.
Mm-hmm. This is the quality programming.
Yeah, quality programming here. So one of the interesting, people have been, it periodically shows up in my feed, because I follow a lot of photographers, and so there were various professional photographers. I think it was Steve McCurry went down and sort of snuck into Ground Zero and took photographs because nobody was allowed in there. But and it is really there's I understand the appeal of wanting to see it. There's something there's something visceral about this, seeing the tragedy sort of in a way up close. And what was interesting was that McCurry was not allowed in, but he did it anyway. And I think there's this kind of the forbidden aspect of documenting something that is in a way is not supposed to be for not something the public is supposed to see. Anyway, was that also something that drew you to the sort of the found footage genre and also 9/11? Like, I'm curious, like, how much it is just like we shouldn't be watching this in some sense, but like we can't help but watch it.
Yes, absolutely. I am generally drawn to films. I'm one of those people who, you know, if I hear about a new film and it's supposed to be the most shocking thing you've ever seen, I can't help but watch it. And so
Yes.
it was the same sort of thing with 9/11, except I recognize that this was reality and this really happened. But yeah, I'm obsessed with the idea of running into danger and these characters that feel that they must document everything. So like Hud in Cloverfield says, I've got to document this, I've got to document this. And Heather in Blair Witch Project is exactly the same. We've got to get this on tape. We've got to get this on tape. I completely, like, fully understand that desire. I think I want to capture everything because my memory is so appalling that I think everything needs to be filmed, otherwise I'm not going to remember it. So yeah, I really, really relate to these characters. I don't know about the running into danger part. I don't know how much I would do that, but I do understand, it blew my mind that there was videos of people filming as the towers started to crumble.
I know, it's so crazy.
And then they start to run once they it's mad. But yeah, I think quite relatable in some strange way.
Are you also a photographer, or do you take photographs a lot?
No, but I'm sort of an amateur filmmaker, or at least I was when I was younger. I spent all my teenage years filming everything me and my friends did, and that was before phone cameras and things. I just had a little mini DV handy cam thing, and I was filming all the time. So I think I sort of do relate to that. And I also there were so many other things converging around found footage. So I was interested in the sort of video games. Video games were becoming more and more popular, even more popular than Hollywood films. I think some of those video games had started making more money than the biggest Hollywood blockbusters. So I was thinking, how do these films kind of connect with video games and that kind of point of view camera? I was also thinking a lot about documentary, because documentary was having a really big moment because of, there was Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11, and then there was so many sort of films. I wrote an article once called Attacking America, because it felt like after 9/11, when the Iraq and Afghanistan wars went off, then there were so many documentaries that were very left-wing, very critical of what America was doing at that time. So it felt like all these things were kind of coalescing together. This big, lots of documentary, lots of video games, lots of people capturing disasters with their own cameras.
Well, also, I would add to that, and this is, I had a similar sort of experience as a kid. This was the late 90s, kind of early 2000s was the height of popularity of like Jackass and Tom Green and prank culture and like skateboard culture, and like people just getting out there with a crappy camera, filming whatever and messing around and doing, skateboarding and rollerblading, but also, hooliganism basically. And, and I participated in some of that, and I made some videos like that, and it was always really fun. But for me, it was always like the exciting bit for that was like how liberating the technology was, because it was so accessible. I mean, now it's even more accessible, but at the time it felt so accessible. And then to see a movie like 28 Days Later, which was filmed on one of those consumer level cameras, and to see it in theaters, on printed film, it was kind of an amazing experience. It made it feel somehow like possible to engage in that kind of creative act. Whereas I think prior to that, who is going to be able to get 16 millimeter or 35 millimeter film? That was such a hassle.
Yeah, and editing. I mean, for me, the problem when I was younger and I had a mini DV camera, I can't even remember how I had to edit things, but like I think I had to try and get them onto my TV in a video player, and I was doing all this crazy stuff. Whereas now it was all non-linear editing, and you can just put it all in the computer. So yeah, but that's interesting because also 28 days later, one of the quotes on the back of my Rec DVD says Blair Witch meets 28 days later, and I think it is a really good comparison because of that look, that aesthetic, that kind of not perfect aesthetic. That's what I want from horror films. I don't want glossy horror films like like Smile or something recent. Like
Fair
that.
enough. Yeah. So let's now talk about the found footage genre. And one of the things that one of the piece of terminology that you point out in the book is to think about these it can be we can think of them as found or footage that had been sort of lost or whatever, but another way of thinking about them and characterizing them is as diegetic camera. So can you explain to us what the diegetic camera genre is, like what it means for the camera to be diegetic?
Yeah, so this is me being what I would call an annoying academic and trying to take the popular idea of found footage, because found footage as well, there's a whole other type of movie called found footage where people actually make films out of footage they found,
Right.
like existing footage. So it's like found footage horror is something different. And yeah, the reason I went for the term diegetic camera, I didn't sort of make it up. It came from I think a guy called Zachary Ingle. But it just seemed to me to be a much better way to describe these films. The word diegetic just means it's in the world of the film. So usually people talk about diegetic and non-diegetic music. So non-diegetic music is the score and diegetic music would be a radio in the film. So these cameras are diegetic. They're in the world of the film, which means they're often in the hands of a character, but they don't have to be. They could be a surveillance camera. They could be like a webcam, like in something like Unfriended. But I think it's a more precise way of defining these films. I recognize that it's not going to catch on, and everyone's not going to start calling them diegetic camera films, but I would like them to. Yeah.
So distinctive of the diegetic camera film, then it seems essential that that the camera be part of the in-world sort of universe. Are there other features of diegetic camera films that are worth pointing out here before we jump into Rec in particular?
Well, I think one of the things I talk about in the book is the way the audience is like primed for this experience. So it's often there's an argument, I think it's, again, I can't remember every name, but I think Peter Woos says that all films prime their viewer for a particular experience. And I think it's really interesting the way these films prime their viewer to accept the experience. So very early in Rec, we have Angela sort of going up to the camera operator Pablo and whispering in his ear, "If this interview's crap, just cut." And we have her fluffing her takes, like she's trying to do a piece to camera and she messes it up a couple of times, so we're sort of seeing her practice. So there's all these things right early on in the film that sort of make you go, okay, this is unedited footage, this is a reality TV show, the likes of which I know and recognize. It's all about building what I call mediated realism. So it's like a particular kind of realism that is it's the realism of knowing that there are media products like this out there, if that makes sense. So yeah, but apart from that, it's, I don't know, there's lots of other kind of concepts I think the diegetic camera does, like it aligns us with the point of view of an operator. Sometimes that operator is really present. So in Blair Witch Project, we get to see Josh quite a lot, but in this, we barely see Pablo, but he becomes more of a presence as the film goes on. So there's lots of stuff like that that I think is interesting.
One of the things that I think can be, and maybe this shades into the next thing I want to talk about, but I'm just kind of preview it here. The limited perspective has this really interesting feature, which is that, and this is not essential to the diegetic camera, because of course there could be multiple diegetic cameras, and you, in the book, you talk about, you contrast the Blair Witch Project with the 2016 Blair Witch sort of sequel or remake. I can't remember. Is it a sequel?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it is a sequel.
It's a sequel, yeah. So where like everybody's got a camera effectively, and there's this cutting between everybody's perspective.
Do they all have like head?
They have like head cameras, GoPros or something, right?
Okay,
they all have like something.
Yeah, we saw that movie. We saw it. Yeah, we watched it.
but I think, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like embracing that limited perspective makes for a more effective diegetic camera film, and I'll say one reason why. So when you have a single camera, no editing, like in Rec, there's often times where you want the camera to be somewhere it's not. So, I'll give you an example that I thought was really where it kind of, there's a couple examples, but here's one that really kind of stood out to me at the beginning. So, this is right after the police officer has been bit by the old lady in the apartment, and they drag him down the stairs and they set him down on the sort of base of the stairs, and he's bleeding out. And Pablo, the cameraman, wants to sort of attend to him and see what's up. But at the same time, to the right, off-screen right, you see that like there's all these lights shining in, and somebody screams like, "We're locked in." And so simultaneously, you're like, "Oh, I want to figure out what the hell is going on. I want to be over there to the right, finding out why they're locked in. But I also want to attend to this guy who's bleeding out, because it seems like he needs some attention too." And you feel the tension that Pablo feels of like being pulled in these two directions. And I think like that's really crucial in some ways to me to some of the power of the found footage, because in a standard classical Hollywood narrative film, the camera could do anything. The camera can you can cut anywhere you want. And so you don't have that limitation of the perspective. When the director decides to limit the perspective, it's almost like it draws attention to itself. Like in a horror film, in a classical horror film, when they don't cut and they just linger, the audience is sort of primed to think, oh, something's going to happen. And they're waiting, the cut is like going to almost reveal when something's going to happen. But in the diegetic camera, you don't have that. It doesn't draw attention to itself because it's just part of the structure of the film. And so it to me, it like makes it, it sort of more naturally connects to that aspect of horror or terror, which is like the desire to know, but not being able to know. Because that limited perspective like prevents you from going sort of where you want to ultimately go. And when you have multiple cameras, now you have to still justify why we're not going to one camera rather than the other. So that's one of the things that I find really cool about Rec, is that it by staying in one camera and no editing, it really, really forces us into this perspective, basically the one occupied for the most part by Pablo.
Yeah, it's really weird. I think that one of the interesting things here is like the mixture of privilege and lack of privilege. It feels like you're getting a very privileged. It's like, oh wow, there happened to be a cameraman at this event. How lucky are we that we're going to get to see what unfolds here? But then at the same time, he is just the camera operator with one camera, and like you say, he can't capture everything, and that adds to the chaos of it, because he's trying to flip his camera around to see things. He's trying to be a professional, he's trying to document and all those sorts of things, but he can't quite do it, and sometimes he's having to secretly film things and all those sorts of things.
That part is great. Sorry, I was just going to say that I love that part. We have to talk about the part where he's secretly filming. Sorry.
Yeah, it comes up a lot in found footage films, the sort of idea of discrete film, because so often you have a character who is saying, turn off the camera, and you have a really effective one of those in Rec, the cop guy. But yeah, the other thing I would say on that is just the found footage or diegetic camera films. They really make you, I think but like many horror films, they really make you imagine off-screen space, because they're constantly reminding you that there's a person behind the camera. So you're sort of constantly aware that there's this character that you're never seeing, but you're aware they're there and you're feeling what they feel. And I call it cinematography as performance, because you're getting a sense of how they feel through their camera work. So you're constantly thinking about what's off screen, partly because of the camera operator being off screen, but also because they can't capture everything, and you become hyper aware of that, I think.
so you can almost take like the aspects of that directors will use, techniques directors will use in classical horror, like they'll use a shaky camera, or they'll use
point of view shots.
A point of view shot, exactly. Like I was thinking the end of Silence of the Lambs and the end of this film, both point of view shots with the night vision. But in those sort of, outside of the diegetic camera, it of course always has to draw attention to itself. So it's used in a way like we can ask a question like meta narratively, like why is the director doing this? Like there's going to be some reason the director's doing this. It's to emphasize something. It's to, increase the terror or whatever. Whereas in diegetic camera, the question is always in the world. And so it's always got to be motivated in the world. And so when the camera is shaking around like in Rec, there's a lot of sort of hyper shaky camera. But it's motivated by the fact that Pablo's running. He's running away from something and he's really scared. And I mean, one thing you're suggesting is the difference is that leads us to then, form impressions and beliefs about the characters and the emotional states of the characters. That's definitely true. I think that's one part of it. And I wonder if there's anything else, because I keep coming back to this idea that, and I don't know what to make of it, that that the motivational component is playing some role here. That like instead of fighting an in-universe motivation for the shaky cam in a classical film, we'd have to look outside of the universe for a motivation for that, for the choice of that. And I wonder if
that, for like the Bourne identity.
Yeah, the Bourne. Yeah, exactly. Like it's all shaky, and you're like,
yeah,
okay, so is that supposed to like, I guess I'm supposed to think like, okay, this is, very dramatic, very intense, but it's not like
you're like the person who's watching this movie via like the eyeballs through which I'm watching this movie that are scared,
shaking around,
or like,
or Jason Bourne is like, for example, I mean, in the Bourne movies, Jason Bourne presumably is like, he's like a super agent, right? So he's not like seeing it all shaky. He's like, it's like all very clear to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry.
No, I don't know. I think you're exactly right. I was also thinking about like movies that are like oneers, like things like those sort of like director imposed restrictions on the camera movements or like how we're seeing the film that always just feel like they're interesting, but they feel like a formal intellectual exercise. And then you start to engage with the film being like, how'd they do that? That there's a cut there. Where's the hidden cut? You're thinking about it from a production standpoint and not from an emotional narrative standpoint. Oftentimes.
Yeah. Does that resonate? I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I love those oneers that you're talking about. Like we recently had Adolescence, which I think made it over to America and was pretty. Yeah, it did. Of course, it won Emmys and things. They're really interesting too. But you're right. We are thinking of if we are thinking of anything, if we are thinking critically as we're watching the film and thinking why is the camera shaking during a Bourne action scene, or why is the camera not cutting, why is it floating through space, we're always kind of we're sort of giving that to an auteur figure. We're giving that to we know that the director of this must be making a creative choice, and so if we're thinking about anything, then yeah, you're right, it's external. Whereas the author of these films, you have to buy in, or you have to imagine, or whatever. You have to imagine that the author is not some external director. It is the person it's the diegetic character.
Yeah.
Who's trapped. It doesn't have any choices to make.
So one of the things you talk about in the book is that can sort of encourage more of an active participation in the audience in terms of their not necessarily identification with, but at least their sort of emotional resonance between them and the characters involved in the action. Can you say a bit more about that? Like, I thought that part was really interesting.
Yeah, it's I'm like it's theory, so I'm not sure if I'm right, and I think Rec is a really interesting example where I'm not sure I'm right, because because in for example, Blair Witch Project or Paranormal Activity or Cloverfield, you are so aware of the character who's holding the camera.
Right.
You are so aware of who they are, how they're feeling. They talk. Sometimes they turn the camera around on themselves. In Blair Witch Project, they've got 2 cameras going, so they film each other. Some people are taking turns with the camera, all that kind of stuff. You don't get any of that with Rec.
Right.
So you are not, I don't, we learn nothing about Pablo as a character, except maybe that he's a professional. He wants to get the shots. Like, he turns on the light immediately when he sees that scary, oh my God, that terrifying woman near the start. What's her name? Conchita, I think her name is. He turns the camera on. He wants to get in close, even as the cop is getting bitten and that sort of thing. He wants to do his job. But apart from that, we don't learn much more about him. So it's very difficult, but we are aligned with his point of view for the entire film. He never, if I remember, I mean, he puts down the camera a couple of times, but no one ever films anything else. So we learn everything as he learns. We're completely sort of as he learns anything, we learn it. And constantly that alignment with point of view as well means when somebody attacks Pablo, they are attacking us. They're coming straight at us, not at another character on screen. They come straight at us. There's when the lady's chained up at the bottom of the stairs, she comes straight at Pablo and his camera. So we have this kind of alignment, this enforced alignment with the character, which I think is interesting. But we're also desperate for knowledge, like Pablo is. We're desperate to find out what's going on. So as he tries to find out things, as he puts his camera up and tries to secretly film things, we want that knowledge as well. So we're constantly sort of I would argue that makes us quite active.
Yes.
Well,
like puts it aligns us in his epistemic situation, which I think is so whatever. I mean, of course, he could be turning his head without turning the camera, of course, so he could see things we not. But like it, for the most part, we're eliding that. But I wanted to ask about one other or sort of float an idea to you, which this could actually help your thought that like. These should not be thought of as the genre shouldn't be thought as found footage, but actually diegetic camera. But also about sort of what you've been talking about like the sort of immediacy of being sort of put in the perspective of a particular character. So Rec, to me, there's a moment in Rec that I was sort of musing on afterwards, which made me sort of like, well, when I saw it, I was like, I jumped out of my seat. And then I was like, when I reflected on it, I was like, oh, this is really cool. So the moment I'm talking about is when Pablo rewinds the camera. Okay, so I was thinking about it like if this was genuinely found footage, where the idea is it was recorded and then somebody just found this tape.
Right.
Well, of course, there wouldn't be a moment on the tape where the tape is rewound.
Rewinding, but
right?
yeah.
Because,
recording the rewinding.
You don't
of it.
record the rewinding. Of it.
Yeah.
So in fact, I was thinking I think what we're supposed to be imagining is the filming of the footage, not the footage itself that we find later. We're supposed to be imagining this as it's happening being filmed by Pablo, and as part of like, so it's as if we just have like a live feed into the camera recording at everything that is being displayed on that back screen or whatever for Pablo. That's what we're seeing, and I think I don't think I've ever seen a found footage film. I mean, I haven't seen, I'm not an expert, so I don't know, but like that felt so interesting to me because it made it feel like, okay, we're supposed to be imagining this is happening as it's happening, not later we're watching it, because of course that's the only way we can make sense of him rewinding the tape. And that really, to me, contributes to the immediacy, because then maybe I didn't think of it at the time, but I think maybe subconsciously we then imagine like, no, we're supposed to think of this as happening now. Maybe this footage will never be found. Like it might get destroyed,
right.
And it could at the very end of the film be destroyed and it still be coherent because the thought was we're supposed to be watching it as it's happening. Anyway, does that resonate with you? Because I feel like that was, to me, like it kind of opened my mind to the film in a way that I hadn't before.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. It's a very it's an outlier in that sense. It's an outlier in another sense because so many of these found footage films have the typical kind of title screen at the start, like Blair Witch Project, that says a year later their footage was found. Cloverfield has a very similar one saying that this mini SD card was found here at this site or whatever. So Rec deliberately doesn't have anything like that, unless I'm misremembering. I don't think it does.
I think it just goes straight into the.
It does, doesn't it? And also, even when it puts up the film company logo, it glitches. So there's kind of this sense of this kind of sense of liveness, which you don't often get with found footage films. For that exact reason, that they have been found. But it also, one of the things that I think that moment really highlights that I love about these films is the technology. So the fact that we can rewind, one, that's a very kind of a realistic or believable thing to do. It's like, what the hell did we just capture on camera? I need to see that back right now. But also in Rec, I think what's really interesting is the way we go through the light on the camera becomes really important. Then the fact that the camera can film in night vision becomes really important. And also there's those moments near the end where the microphone on the camera seems to be breaking and the sound keeps distorting. So there's this constant reminder of the technology of the camera and how important that is to keep it in your mind. Because again, we're not seeing it. We're not seeing this camera, but we have to constantly think about it. We have to constantly remember its purpose and its potential, I guess.
Well, and it's so brilliant how the film does that, how the camera sort of, as it breaks down, and basically then you get these motivations for, seeing things in night vision or seeing, and in the night vision too is also like extremely limited perspective. Like it's like, it's like all like hyper vignetted or whatever. So you, which is so scary. Cause again, that limited perspective being like, okay, the demon lady might be right out of view.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
I didn't have anything else.
Okay, I just curious.
Sorry.
But
yeah.
The other thing about, speaking of the technology, so we first watched Rec, probably on a sound bar, or on a laptop maybe.
Yeah.
We watched it in like very crappy
I think I managed to find, for a long time I couldn't find it not dubbed.
Right. Yeah, there was only it was only streaming the dubbed version for a long time.
Right. So I managed to
got like a DVD.
I tracked down a used DVD.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about the quality.
The quality was bad. Anyway, we watched.
But that's good.
Well, yes.
Yes. Visually, sound mixing wise, though, I think we were missing a lot.
Okay.
So that's the thing. So we watched it recently. To prepare for this, we watched it, and we have actually I just upgraded our receiver, so we have a pretty good sound setup.
This is the corner of the podcast in which Justin tells us.
No, we don't need to go into it. But the point is that we watched it for the first time with like legitimate audio, like you would have had in a theater, like the kind of audio you would have had. And the first thing I noticed was, there's real like low, what's sometimes called LFE or low frequency extension. Like there's real subwoofer stuff. Like there's a definite like low soundtrack in this movie. So there are sound effects in particular when they go up into one of the apartments to try to escape, and you're hearing the whir of the helicopters outside, and it's just this like, it's really like overwhelmingly like loud
and claustrophobic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing I noticed. I was like, whoa, they really did the LFE nice. It was good. It sounded great. The other thing that I noticed about the sound this time was they go ahead and blow out the mics all the time. So every time a kid is screaming, they're like way over peak, and it's clipping, and in the sound it feels like it should just blow up your speakers, like that. Especially the little kid Jennifer when she's screaming, and it's like so high pitched and overwhelming. And I thought that was, again, speaking to your point about like the technology, that's like a point where the technology is breaking, right? The microphone is just it can't handle this sound. It's too much.
And I like they even include a moment where Angela is like explaining to Jennifer's mom, like, don't talk off screen right now, because like I have the mic, Jennifer has the mic. When you talk off screen, it just screws up our audio. Like she's
I forgot about that. Yes.
Like she explains how this works. She's like, we have one input here right now, like so. Again, so helping us sort of understand the technology, its limitations.
And it's so good because again, like that contributes to our limited perspective, which again just amplifies the horror because we know we're missing something. But anyway, I was just struck also just by, sorry, there were two different points here, but I was just also just struck by that subwoofer. I was like, that probably, I don't know if that mic would have picked up that.
No, but it makes
great.
you really uncomfortable.
It's really good.
Subliminally, if not. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the secret filming moment?
What's
when Pablo sneaks into, or do you not want to talk?
Say it, go for it.
No, you said you wanted to come back to it, so I was just helping you.
Oh, do you mean the part? Yes. So when
Pablo has to look through an upper window.
I thought that scene was so good. That may be my favorite scene in the film, partly because, again, I think to your point, Pete, it really draws attention to the fact that, like we're interlopers into this whole event. Like this guy is having to open up a window and sort of sneak the camera in there and then zoom in on these guys. And this is when they're the medical investigators coming in, and he immediately starts handcuffing the two bitten men. And you're like, whoa, this isn't good. And then the one of them jumps up and I think bites one of the firemen or whatever. And I just think like that sequence, and then it's like you're juxtaposing those images with him sort of telling Angela to be quiet while Angela's like, what's happening? What's happening? Because she can't see. So it's reminding us of the fact that she can't see. And then when he's like, okay, we got to go. Like, just like, let's run. I just think that sequence is so good. It's so scary. And it kind of crystallizes a lot of the things I think that you're saying, Pete, about just how that limited perspective is used really effectively to both get us into the perspective of the characters, but then also just make us feel like I don't know, we shouldn't be here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's that kind of it's that. I don't want to say typical documentary framing, but we've seen it before in documentaries where people, it's like the camera operator is improvising. You get that sense because you're not seeing perfectly planned out cinematography. You're seeing cinematography that is captured on the fly, and they're doing their best. And I think it's interesting that you just mentioned the fact that Angela is she's desperate to see, and that's kind of like it's almost like a what's the word? It's almost like a premonition to what's going to happen at the end, because that then again, when it comes down to night vision and lights and that sort of thing, and they're completely in the dark, what can Angela see? She can't see anything, and she's completely reliant on Pablo again, and that's for me what makes the end so utterly terrifying, is that we're just seeing this woman's face as she is completely in the dark and terrified, and I just can't imagine anything scarier, really.
Oh my God. And then also the camera, we know what's behind her, like we know there's that sort of demon woman, and there's also the demon child up in the attic, but there's in particular this naked sort of skeletal woman, like kind of moving around in the background, stumbling around because presumably she can't see either. And oh God, that's like top-notch sort of scary horror. But again, it's all motivated by like Angela can't see, Pablo can, and he's trying to quietly tell her, move. Like this thing is coming for you.
He's just saying be silent, and that's all he can do in that moment. It's it's hopeless.
Pete, do you have a favorite like sequence in the film? I mean, I was telling Laura before we jumped on, I was like, it's kind of funny when I was going through the beats of the movie. It is a lot of like they run upstairs, They run downstairs.
Mm.
They run upstairs. They run downstairs. Like it's so much of it is just like that stairwell and going up and down the stairwell.
Yeah.
But again, all of it is motivated. It's like we need to go back down to find the apartment number so that we can run back up and get the keys so that we can run back downstairs to get
Yes.
out through the sewer. And then they can't run downstairs because there's a bunch of zombies down there. So then they have to run up to the penthouse. And it's like just that. I love that aspect. But do you have a favorite sequence in the film?
Yeah, I mean, I'm unfortunately, I think I have to probably give you the boring answer. And for me, it's pretty much the last half an hour. It's pretty much from when the little girl Jennifer turns and spits in her mum's face and runs off, because I feel like there is barely any. I mean, it's only I think 1 hour and 10-15 minutes or something, the film.
Short. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Like it gets in and out fast, which is really good. But it is so much just running up and down the stairs. I mean, I love the suspense of the first moment with the lady Conchita, because I just love the way she's moving, and I think that's a really interesting kind of horror performance. The way when they go back in and she's sort of lifting her nightgown up slightly, it's just so odd and weird, and I don't understand it, and I don't understand what's happened to her. And you know, if you've never seen the film before, it doesn't feel like a zombie film at that moment, because that's not how zombies act until she starts running at them. So I think that one, and then also pretty much the final half hour, I think it's one of the most scared I've ever been at a film is when they finally get into that apartment and
that penthouse apartment. Oh God.
Yeah, and the skeletal woman. I think it's like perfect horror. But like so many horror films, it's a shame. I've seen the film probably like 100 times now, and obviously it doesn't have the same effect, and I wish it did, because I remember being absolutely terrified.
Did you see it in theaters?
I didn't.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
I would have first seen it on DVD.
Yeah, that's the same with us. Yeah.
But I think that's the best way. I saw Blair Witch Project in the cinema and I liked it. I saw it again in a friend's living room on video and I loved it.
That makes sense.
You know,
yeah.
the technology, the situation, it just works better.
Yeah, sort of like huddling around something that you like, a smaller screen feels a bit more correct for that medium. Yeah.
I want to ask you also about your favorite sequence, but just on the woman. So they go into that apartment. The woman bites the police officer. They go back to the apartment a couple times. The second time they go back, they're like confronting the woman, and then they shoot her. And then she falls. She slumps to the ground. And I think there's another person there as well who's also slumped. I can't remember.
I think so.
Yeah, there's like two people sort of slumped. And then they go back to that apartment again later, and they're gone. That's a great scare.
Yeah.
That is a great scare. I love that. And they do that kind of thing again when they after the girl spits at her mom, and then I can't remember why. I guess because she's like hysterical. I think her character's name is even like hysterical woman or something.
Yeah, hysterical mom. Or yeah.
She she's hysterical or whatever. So they handcuff her to the banister. And then some of the turned people are from the textile area are breaking through that barrier, and they're like, we can't. She's like, let me out of here, and they're like, it's too late, sorry. So they have to run upstairs. Okay, then they come back down, and she's dead because she's been eaten by the zombies. But this is when they're coming back down to find the apartment number, and they go back, they look at the apartment number, and her body's just limp. And then they turn around and she's standing.
Yes. Yeah. And they've got to get past her to get up the stairs. Yeah.
So good. Amazing. Those are like, and I love.
It's so simple. Body there, so body simple. Not. Body on the ground, body standing.
It's a body, but now it's moving. It's so scary. That I think it's because it's uncanny. And I think that's an aspect of horror that, we've talked about on the show a little bit about like, Lovecraft is interested in the notion of the uncanny and the things that are like, it's inexplicable, but it demands an answer. And so we want to look into it and we want to try to uncover what it is. And these moments are just, incredibly simple, but just that uncanniness of like a body that's now come to life off screen is, I don't know. I find that really creepy, even though it might not be like the sort of the scariest moment, but it's just something. It just adds to the creepiness of the film. But Laura, so same question as you do. Have a favorite like sort of sequence of the film?
I think I don't know if I have a favorite sequence. I really like the end, mostly because I am very unsettled when there is a house that is filled with like bulletin boards and a lot of clippings.
Yeah. Like it looks like someone lost their mind there.
Anytime there's like 100 articles and photographs on a wall, I'm like, ooh, and I love that feeling. So I love that there's hinting at all this lore that we don't know what the hell's happening. They don't know what's happening. We don't know what's happening, but I'm very intrigued. I also think that the opening is really good. Like before when we're in the firefighting, because I think it just like does such a good job of immediately priming you, as you say, for what you're going to see and the motivations for why we're going to see, but also just get enough of like who Angela is and why she feels stuck in a late night TV show that like not that many people watch.
Yeah.
She's desperate for action.
Yeah.
She's so bored. She's like, can you tell me something exciting? And they're like, yeah, we mostly just like go out and fix water line breaks. And she's like, okay. You get it. She walks into the mealed room and they all are like hooting at her. Right. She's like this like woman in the field, like surrounded by all these men. There's like this feeling of like Pablo kind of like has her back, but she's brave and she like wants to get down to something and she has aspirations for beyond what she is. And that, so like you can kind of like, it doesn't take a lot of like dialogue or they don't make much of it, but you get so much of who Angel is just from that very beginning. Yes. And it's funny too. I think the beginning is funny.
And it's remarkable. I checked the timestamps. That sequence is 7 minutes long.
7 minutes.
They get the call 7 minutes into the movie. And the bite of the police officer is 14 minutes.
No way, really?
It's amazing. It's so tight.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable. Like you're 14 minutes in this movie, and already people are getting destroyed,
getting eaten. Yeah.
There's a lot of films that could do with getting to the point that quickly.
Yes.
Frankly.
Yeah. I also the body falling from the stairwell makes me jump every time, no matter how many times I've seen this movie.
So
that's great.
That is so good. And apparently, I don't know if this is true. IMDb trivia, who cares? It sort of makes sense given sort of the terror and the reactions. But apparently the cast did not know that was going to happen. So, I mean, obviously they didn't drop an actual body. They dropped, they dropped something, a dummy or something. But they were not prepared for
I
it.
had read in other places besides IMDb trivia that many of the actors had partial scripts, and that was done in service of trying to get some genuine reactions from certain things. So,
And that's an amazing, also just an amazing sort of continuity cut there, because there is a cut. The camera kind of shakes a little bit, but it feels continuous. Again, because we've been primed by like, this is unedited footage. So you're just sort of seeing this in real time. So you can forgive, like you can sort of see when you look at it where the cut takes place. But there is a cut because, of course, they didn't just drop a human being to his death, because if you go back and look, like you see the thing fall and you can even hear it before he falls. Like, because they added it in post. Yes. They added a scream that immediately ends when he hits the ground with the thud. I mean, it's so visceral and so sort of, it just comes out of nowhere. I think that's one of the best scares in the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Here's one other thing about this film I just absolutely love. And again, maybe now it's the part of the podcast where we just say, I wish more movies were like this. So there's extensive world building in this film that they don't go into at all. There's like, we get into that apartment, the penthouse apartment, and we realize like, okay, there's been some sort of exorcism happening. There's a possessed woman. There's some scientist / priest who's been engaged in experiments up here for a long period of time. He's at some point like sort of whatever. He's determined he has to just kill her or destroy her, and he's locked her in some room. And we just get like snippets of this, and I just love that none of it's explained really. It's just sort of enough little tantalizing tidbits to to give us a sense of like, yeah, some bad stuff's been going on. It's real creepy. But again, your perspective is Pablo and Angela's. So they don't know anymore. So we're not going to tell you anymore.
Yeah.
And then the film just ends with Angela being dragged into the darkness. And what a killer ending. Like, just to have her, the last thing you see is her body being pulled into oblivion, and then just straight to credits. Especially after they've set up all this, like, tantalized us with all this, like,
Right.
lore or whatever.
I think that's also what's fun about Pablo having to peek in through a window in order to see, when the police officers turn in this, because that's the information we need. The most important stuff is happening behind closed doors.
Yes.
We're privileged that there's a camera in here, but that camera is repeatedly and Pablo and Angela are repeatedly being rebuffed. Because they're not meant to be there. They're not supposed to see anything. All they can do is peek into windows and or kill time by doing interviews that seem to be sort of irrelevant. Like by this guy being like, these Chinese immigrants.
Yes, right.
I
actually did like that sequence too,
it's
though.
funny. Like,
Yeah.
it is, and it is fun to get a sense of like the cast of characters of these people, all these people that, that are stuck together. But from Angela's perspective, like she wants to know, why are we like, what are you testing for when you're doing a blood test? Why are we like in quarantine right now? What's going on? Like why is the health like department involved with any of this? Like she needs to know that stuff. Nobody's going to tell her that. She's sort of like, I mean, we are as an audience member helped to figure out that Jennifer is going to turn because she just happened to ask about the little girl's dog.
I know.
Oh, because she's killing time. Like she's just like, who lives in your house? Your dog? Your dog's at the vet? Cool. She doesn't know what else to do but besides keep it rolling and talk to people, even though she doesn't think it's consequential. But that's, I think, also like what's so fun about it is that we're desperate for information the same way Angela is, and we're not gonna get it. And we're just stuck.
Like with all the best horror films, they should withhold. But it's interesting as well. Have you guys seen the remake? The American remake, Quarantine.
We have not. We thought about watching it prior to this, but then we decided to just think about this film and not watch it. So tell us how is it?
Just one of the big differences. I mean, there's quite a lot of differences, and if you ever wanted to read about them, there's an author, Shelley McMurdo, who's got a found footage book. It's called Blood on the Lens, and she's got a whole chapter that sort of compares Quarantine and Wreck, and she talks a lot about why Quarantine feels extra relevant to the American context, and she talks about 9/11 and firefighters as heroes and all this sort of stuff. But one of the big differences is that it isn't it's not the religious stuff is kind of taken out, and it is just a viral kind of thing that's spreading, which Rec sort of suggests all the way through that it's this just a viral thing, but then it kind of brings in this extra element of is it a virus that's actually possession? And I mean it's not 100% clear what's going on, but it kind of adds that extra religious layer which Quarantine doesn't have. And I believe the director one of the directors of Rec was not very happy about the fact that they changed that in the American remake. So point of interest.
I would assume you've seen the Rec sequels.
Yeah, I've seen all of them. Yeah.
So we have not, but are they like? Okay. So one thing I did read though was Rec 2 picks up exactly where Rec 1 leaves off.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Does. Yeah. Rec 2 is really good.
Okay, we should definitely watch Rec 2. Yeah,
but it does that thing that you were talking about earlier, where it introduces a whole load more cameras. So you've got one group of people that go in with video cameras. I think they're kids. They're like teenagers or something, from what I remember. And they go they somehow manage to get into the building from the first film. And then you've also got all these like SWAT team guys who've got cameras on their helmets.
I see.
So you've got loads of cameras, which I kind of like it. But I also
it's a different thing. No, I mean, look,
it is. Yeah,
I think, and one of the things I loved about your book was how you distinguish all within the diegetic camera subgenre, like all these different ways to do it. Like there's these different ways of priming the audience, this setting the scene. Is this a faux documentary? Is this like, is this some home video footage? Whatever, different ways of setting. And then within that, like, is it edited? Is it unedited footage? Is there, is this something like, we're watching like you know, how much is this assembled, and then also like within that, how the different ways the films have to motivate the characters to be filming, and these are all like crucial differences, and so I guess I'm okay, you know, I think within the genre, let a thousand flowers bloom, like, you know, maybe it's good, maybe this 12 camera found footage can be done really well. But I just think there's something really kind of cool about the purity of Rec, in that it really does seem to embrace the essence of the genre in a way that even the Blair Witch Project doesn't. Which to me, the Blair Witch Project is my favorite found footage horror film still, but it in a way is not as pure as Rec, because it has multiple cameras, it is assembled, and you know, it has the title cards and so on. Yeah. So
the Blair Witch Project is so perfect because it has the mix of it does, like you were just saying, like in the book, I tried to sort of categorize different types of found footage horror films, and some of them pretend to be documentaries, some of them pretend to be reality TV, some of them pretend to be home movies, for example. Blair Witch Project is really interesting because it has the documentary part. It's got these students that are trying to make what they think is a professional documentary, but kind of looks a bit pretentious and silly sometimes. But then it's got the home movie stuff. It's got, and that's the best stuff. Is Heather's decided to take this other camera to capture the behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, it's got that perfect blend of documentary and home video. Whereas, yeah, like you said, Rec is just pure. This is reality TV. This is how we make, you know, reality TV shows.
The book is found footage horror films. Folks listening should check it out. I mean, really, like, if you've enjoyed this conversation, I think you should check it out. It's, you know, it's a book written for you know, for the academics, but I think it reads very well, and honestly, you'll get a lot of fun film recommendations. One thing I want to ask you, Pete, is, as we're closing up here, you know, you did a lot of research for the book. Obviously, you watched a lot of found footage horror. Is there one that you might think is lesser known that you would recommend, that you saw in your research for the book, or just one that you've loved over the years? A found footage horror.
If I can, I would recommend two. There's a British one called Exhibit A, which I wouldn't imagine many people know unless you're really into found footage horror movies. And it's about this British family who've got a camcorder and they're going through some troubles. But it starts off just as, you know, a collection of home videos, and then obviously it all turns quite dark. One of the weird things that I barely thought about when I was writing the book was a lot of people probably wouldn't even call this a horror film. It looks like a domestic drama, or a, you know, like a family drama for 90% of it, but I would consider it. I'm actually really interested in the intersection of found footage and other genres. So there's another one that I love, but again, most people might not call it a horror film. It's called 0 Day. And it's based on these it's based on the Columbine killers. It's sort of based on their home videos that they made before doing that atrocity. So it's basically about two kids planning a massacre. You know, as we know, that is not going away, it seems. School shootings. So I think that's an incredible film. But again, I know a lot of people wouldn't call it horror, but I think I'm watching two very scarily not relatable, but believable, normal looking monsters. So I would call it a horror film. But,
wow, good Rex. We haven't seen either of them, but we will definitely check them out.
Again, the thing with Columbine happening at that same period of time, and I think what is so haunting about what got into my bones with Columbine too. I mean, obviously, it's like I was in high school or middle school at the time. It was really horrifying, but we had. Have you guys seen, like, there's footage from the surveillance footage?
The surveillance footage
from
for sure.
the high school. And that, like, is some of the most disturbing imagery I think I've seen.
Well,
it is.
Michael Moore uses it in Bowling for Columbine.
Yes, he does. And 0 Day not to spoil it too much, but sort of ends with surveillance footage,
Mhm.
so you can see where that's going.
Oh my
I guess.
god.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Woo,
well,
that-
that one we're gonna have to
we have
gird
to
ourselves.
steel
for.
ourselves.
I know. Sometimes Justin's
Yeah.
like, "Where are you at, Laura?" Like, because I think you can watch pretty much anything anytime.
It depends.
Like, I
There-
feel like you could just like sit down and be
The
like,
one-
"It's Dancer in the Dark time."
The one that was hard for me was Dancer in the Dark. That one
that
really
one like put
messed
me
me
like
up.
that puts me in a funk for
Yeah.
like weeks. Like I really have to be like,
Yeah.
where's my mental health today? How much have I
Yes,
slept?
yes,
Like how
yeah.
did things go today
Yeah.
before I can decide to do it to
Oh
myself?
my god.
I can give you I can give you such a long list of films that you don't want to watch on
Put it-
particular days.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'm sure you know all of them anyway. But
give us one more. It doesn't have to be found footage, but give me like a real
A bummer movie?
A bummer movie.
You want a
'Cause
bummer
the
movie?
reason I ask, I'm always interested in this question. I once asked on Twitter this because I was putting together for my philosophy of film class. I wanted film that like to bring out the like sort of like the film that just basically demands the audience have an extremely negative emotion. So I was like, what's like the most bummer film that you've ever seen? And that's actually I had no one about Dancer in the Dark, but somebody in that one I think was recommended the most, and I had never seen it, so that's why I watched Dancer in the Dark.
we knew it was
And
gonna.
I was
bum us
like,
out.
wow, that was a real bummer. But Pete, do you have any recs on that front? Because I'm always interested in this genre.
have you seen Requiem for a Dream?
Yes, we have
Yeah.
seen Requiem. Yes,
Oh,
that
my
one's a
God.
Laura. Like I remember you were sobbing uncontrollably after that. Yeah,
you were like doing puppet shows for me to try to get me to stop crying because
Yeah.
I like couldn't stop crying. I was like in a fetal
Jeez.
position.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's like one of the best films I've ever seen, but I can't bear it. I
It's not
can't
a
even sit through
rewatch.
it.
Yeah.
The other one I would recommend a bit of an out there one is Capernaum. Have you heard of Capernaum?
Oh,
It's like a
no.
Lebanese drama film.
Okay, Capernaum. That sounds familiar, weirdly, but I
Oh my
don't think
goodness.
I definitely haven't seen it. Capernaum. Okay, I'm gonna look this up.
I felt like I've never felt in a film watching that. I felt like the most hopeless
Oh no, there's
I've
kids
ever
in this
felt.
one. There's kids in
Yeah.
it, Justin.
The reason it's
Yeah.
in
if
my
there's
watch
kids,
list.
I'm crying.
Laura, it's in my Letterboxd watch list, but we haven't seen it because I don't.
Well-
We're gonna have to watch it.
Okay.
when your mental health is feeling good,
And when we're
well,
ready to
is
mess
the
that
worst
back
time?
up again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pete, and last thing, you are working on a new book. So tell us about this book. And here's the thing: we're going to put it out there right now. We want to have you back to talk about that book and a movie for it. But tell us about the new book and when it comes out.
So the book is called. I'm not going to give its full title because it's far too long. But it's the main part of the title is Unsuitable Films and Video Audiences, and it's based on a research project I started 5 years ago, where I basically sent out a questionnaire. I got 300 people to respond. They had to be a child in the 1980s, and they had to have watched films that were, in this country, our ratings are very simple. They were rated 15 or 18.
Mhm.
So if you watched films that were rated 15 or 18 before you were allowed to, age inappropriate films, you could take my survey. So it's basically a big audience study of what that meant to people. And it's coming out in February, and it's got a very cool cover, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm very excited to share it with the world because it's been amazing, just poring over all these people's memories of watching The Fly and Terminator and RoboCop and Gremlins and American Werewolf in London and Nightmare on Elm Street, and the list goes on. I think there was about 700 different films that were mentioned. Aliens, which is another one.
That
I
was
know,
mine.
Yep.
And
So
what was yours, Pete? The film you watched too young?
Well, so I call it my unholy trinity. I saw when I was about 10. I mean, I feel so blessed and lucky because it changed my life and got me into this stuff. I got to see Terminator, Nightmare on Elm Street, and RoboCop when I was about 10.
Wow.
Nightmare on Elm Street was being passed around the school
Yeah.
on a videotape because I think it had just been on TV. That was incredible. Terminator, I just fell in love with that film forever. And RoboCop was the one that made me realise that there are some sick people making movies out there. I couldn't.
So
I
violent.
just didn't. Yeah, at 10 years old, I was like,
So
how can
violent.
you have characters laughing about a guy being shot?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that there was such evil in the world.
Yeah.
And so I've sort of been obsessed with it.
Oh, I
guess.
totally get that. It's a great topic for book. We can't wait to check it out and to have you back to discuss maybe one of those 3 films.
Oh. Awesome.
But Pete, thank you so much for being here. Is there any, so the book is Found Footage Horror Films, A Cognitive Approach. Is there any, can people find you online? Can people read your work? I know you also, write film reviews and do film journalism. Is there any way people can find
I
that?
used to. I don't so much anymore. I used to write for Yahoo TV. You can find me on Twitter at I Love That Film. But I don't really tweet much anymore because everyone went to Blue Sky and I don't get Blue Sky. And I don't know. My online presence is not as much as it was.
Spoken like a
once.
true academic. No problem. Sometimes we ask our guests and they're like, I don't use any social media. And I'm like, that's
We're
fine.
like, yeah, it sounds
That's
like
perfectly
you
fine.
really have your life together.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're
Congratulations
in a better
to you.
headspace than us.
Also 2 small children.
Yes.
If I have time to look at a couple of Instagram videos, I'm feeling very lucky.
Fair enough.
But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you,
It's
Pete.
been amazing.
Absolutely.
Your podcast
So
is
fun.
great.
Really, really lovely having you. And as for us, we are at Cows Pod on Twitter and Blue Sky, and you can find us on the web at cowspod.com. You can buy a shirt with 2 cows on it at shop.cowspod.com. And in 2 weeks, we're closing the book on scary movies, maybe, because we're going to talk with my colleague Rachel Fraser about Parasite. So that should be fun. So we'll see you guys then in 2 weeks. Thanks.